This is Fothentic History.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Brian Young.
And I'm Holly Fry.
So this is part 2 of the Beta Ray Bill and Surtur saga. Just to give a brief recap of last episode, we learned about Beta Ray Bill and how he was able to get the power of Thor, and how Thor lost it for a while and felt disgraced and wanted to renounce his godhood, but his father, Odin, was able to come up with a solution so that both Beta Ray Bill and Thor were able to retain that power, and they fought together to save Bill's people from Surtur's demons, who were in a fleet fleeing from them to find a new place to live.
And Thor, in the meantime, went on some adventures of his own, found the last Viking, fought Fafnir, and even waged battle against the evil Malekith. And Beta Ray Bill and Sif took to the stars, seeking a new homeworld for the Corbinites, and going on many adventures of their own as they went.
They all went about their business for a while, not realizing that danger lurked. There were other larger problems that none of them knew at the time. Surtur was planning his major break from his prison, though it would be some time before Odin realized it was he who was behind the demon attacks that destroyed Bill's people. And once Odin discovered this, he called Bill and Sif back to Asgard, as well as Thor, to tell them more of Surtur and of the dire situation coming.
Surtur's sword, which we talked about in the last episode, called Twilight, would be able to destroy all 9 realms and the entire universe if his sword were empowered by the burning of the eternal flame, which was kept within the walls of the Golden City. With news that Surtur had escaped and was making his way to the Golden City to light that sword, all Asgardians, even those who had been foes of Odin and Thor, came to defend their home and the universe.
Surtur's work against Bill's people, and later using the Dark Elf Malekith on Earth, had all been to lay the groundwork of reigniting the gateway between his realm and Midgard. And once on Midgard, his path would take him to Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, and once crossed, there would be little to stand in his way to ignite Twilight against the eternal flame which was held in the heart of Asgard in the Golden City.
Odin assembled all the armies of Asgard on the vast battlefield of Vigrid, knowing he would need to lead the assembled host into battle against Surtur, and sent them to Midgard. The only gods who remained in Asgard in case the armies of Midgard fell would be Odin and the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge, Heimdall.
The entire populace of Asgardian warriors then charged from the field of Vigrid across the Rainbow Bridge and into Midgard, where already Surtur's demons were tearing into the populace of New York City. Thor called the help of the Avengers to stave off the attacks from Muspel. They fought alongside Bill and Sif, as well as the Warriors 3, the Enchantress, and every Asgardian one could name. Soon they were joined by the Fantastic Four in the battle to save the universe.
So being made of fire, the demons, of course, set fire to much of New York. But Thor, being the god of thunder, was able to cause severe rainstorms over New York to put out the flames on the buildings. And the smoke cleared and revealed that Surtur's demons were still there, and they still needed to be fought. But Surtur himself had also been revealed.
Odin and Bill flew straight for him, using their mystical hammers to fly and hopefully strike a blow. But they flew right through him. Surtur had vanished.
And it was then that they realized that the worst had happened. It was then that Heimdall sounded the Yallarhorn. Surtur had made it to Asgard.
With the heroes of Asgard and Earth fighting to control the battlefield of New York, led by Beta Ray Bill and Lady Sif, Thor knew that his father and Heimdall were alone, so he departed for Asgard to help deal with Surtur. But the problem was getting worse. Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic himself, discovered that Surtur's demons were constructing a portal atop the Empire State Building that would allow even more of them to pour through into New York. Clearly this was bad.
Even the U.S. Army arrived to help, but of course they were completely overwhelmed. Bill took command of the battle, dividing the forces at his disposal to address each problem. And meanwhile, Thor arrived on the Rainbow Bridge in time to see Heimdall facing off against Surtur.
Heimdall and Surtur traded blows with their swords, but even the Guardian of Bifrost was no match for the might of Surtur. Surtur slashed at Heimdall, knocking him from the Rainbow Bridge, and then turned his sword to the bridge itself, shattering it.
On the wind in New York were carried pieces of glass of a million colors, and those on the ground that understood what was going on realized that the Rainbow Bridge had been broken. They would never be able to return to Asgard to help.
Thor managed to catch Heimdall, falling into the abyss, and bring him back to the surface of Asgard, but this brought him to the attention of Surtur. Thor attacked, and for the first time since his imprisonment did Surtur feel pain. This emboldened Thor, but it was not enough to win the day. Surtur swatted Thor out of the way like he was a gnat, and his path to the eternal flame was clear. Except, of course, for the Allfather.
While Surtur and Odin prepared for their final battle, the situation on Earth was not getting any easier. Bill had successfully commanded the forces of Asgard and Midgard into a stalemate with the demons, but they needed to take the battle one step further. And it was at this point that Reed Richards told Beta Ray Bill that it would be possible to reverse the transmission of the Demon Gate so that they could attack them at their source. And knowing that this had worked before, Bill approved the plan, and they set to work securing the gate.
Bill set Tyr, the Executioner, the Enchantress, and Hermod the Legendary to the task of capturing the gate so that Reed Richards could reverse it, while the combined forces of the Avengers and Asgardians charged into a final battle with the demons in New York in the shadow of the World Trade Center.
It was at this point that Bill realized that Sif was not part of the fighting forces. She had covered the retreat of the Harrowing, the warriors of Valhalla, so that they might participate in that final charge. And when he noticed that she was gone, he was about to abandon all of his battle plans in his grief. But Volstagg, the largest member of the Warriors 3, counseled him against it, reminding him that his duty came first.
With a grim determination, Beta Ray Bill then launched into the sky, personally carrying Reed Richards to the Demon Gate so that they might reverse the polarity and take the fight to the demons.
Richards was able to quickly make the alterations to the gate, and the Avengers and the armies of Asgard, led by Beta Ray Bill, flew inside, hoping to destroy the source of the demon's power once and for all.
While Bill fought his way into the demon realm, Odin stood fast against Surtur. For the first part of their battle, it was said that the blows Odin and Surtur traded caused shockwaves that could be felt across all 9 realms.
Odin swore that no enemy had entered the gates of Asgard in all of its history, but Surtur swore that the Odin power could no longer stop him. Indeed, Surtur had grown stronger than when he had been imprisoned by Odin and his brothers. But Odin wielded the Scepter Supreme, a weapon of incalculable power.
Using the Scepter Supreme, Odin channeled all of the cosmic energy of the Odin power into a bolt of irresistible force that smashed into Surtur and knocked him from his feet. But Surtur, though shaken, was unharmed. Knowing he needed even more power to stand against Surtur, Odin harnessed all of his power into the scepter and launched it like a projectile at the demon.
Surtur cut the scepter with Twilight, his sword, and though he seemed unhurt, the Odin power somehow covered him, and Surtur could no longer tap into the power of the eternal flame. But fire was not the only weapon at Surtur's disposal. Through Twilight, he was able to call upon the power of the Cask of Ancient Winters, freezing Odin in place with its terrible might.
With Odin frozen solid, nothing stood between Surtur and the eternal flame. He held the sword over the burning flames, but found that his sword would not light. Something was wrong.
Odin's son Loki, the master of illusion, had created an image of the eternal flame, so naturally it would not light Surtur's sword ablaze. And Surtur was surprised to find that Loki was responsible for this, as Loki had previously vowed to not take the Asgardian side in the coming conflict. But as the god of mischief, he was apt to change his mind whenever it suited him.
Enraged, Surtur turned his sword to Loki, but Loki created a dozen copies of himself, giving Surtur a difficult time in defeating him. But this served as only a brief distraction, and I think Loki knew he was buying time for everyone else. Calling upon the full power of Muspel, He cast Loki away, and finally he was within striking distance of the real eternal flame, and Twilight would be lit.
But as he stood to light the sword, a mighty Uru hammer smashed into Twilight, getting in his way. Thor was back, but not only Thor. Odin had freed himself from the ice of the winter's casket, and Loki had returned from the smiting that Surtur had given him.
For the first time in hundreds of years, Odin and both of his sons joined forces to save the universe. Surtur would have to fight against Odin, Thor, and Loki.
By this point, Bil and the forces of Midgard and Asgard had fought their way into the demon realm, and they had identified the source of their power, which was a great arched passageway. If they could destroy that, then maybe they would have a chance to defeat Surtur's minions on Midgard once and for all.
But the demons were calling reinforcements. Their gates sizzled and boiled with the threat of new demons ready to pour in at any second. The armies Bil commanded worked to make sure the demons they were already fighting stayed down, and then they went to work to try to destroy the gate.
The Enchantress and Karnilla used their magic to weaken the legs of the archway, and with the help of the Vision, She-Hulk, and Hercules, Bil was able to crack the legs and bring the entire thing down upon itself. And just like that, the Battle of Midgard ended.
When Bil closed the gate and destroyed the remaining vestiges of Surtur's demons, Surtur sensed this. He fought off Odin, Thor, and Loki to that point, but he became distracted when he realized that one front in his war had been lost.
During this distraction, Thor wondered if separating Surtur from Twilight might diminish his power, and so he spun Mjolnir as fast as he could and launched it at Surtur's hand. Twilight flew from Surtur, who cursed the loss of his grip.
Thor had been correct. Surtur's connection to the eternal flame and the Odin power had been severed, and Odin can now call upon all of his power. The Allfather grew in height to match Surtur, and you remember he's 1,000 feet tall. And while his sons looked on, he locked himself into mortal combat with the being that had killed his brothers.
Odin grappled Surtur to the edge of Asgard, and called upon his sons to, quote, do what must be done. Loki, using his magic, and Thor his hammer, let loose, crumbling the ground beneath Surtur and Odin's feet. As Odin tumbled into the abyss, clutching Surtur along with him, he shouted to Thor and Loki, well struck, O my sons! Thy father's pride in his children is beyond all measure, but Surtur must never return. Guard well this ancient realm, and rule it wisely. Into your hands I give the future.
With that, Odin and Surtur disappeared into the abyss.
So the battle was won, but Odin was gone. And Bil returned to New York to find Lady Sif badly wounded. Had Hogun the Grim not been so armed with the elixir of recovery, she very well might have died. She was one of the few Asgardians with the power to shift between Midgard and Asgard without use of the Rainbow Bridge, which had of course been destroyed at this point.
So she found her way back to Thor in Asgard, who told her what had happened. He was going to remain in Asgard, and Sif was going to see to it that the Asgardians made it home. She would be transporting them back and forth. Bil would remain on Earth for a time to help protect it, while Thor did what he had to do in the wake of his father's supposed death.
And that is a wrap on Surtur and the Beta Ray Bill two-parter that Bryan did all the research on.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories it's one of my favorite stories. I really think Beta Ray Bill is one of the coolest characters, or one of the coolest. I really think Beta Ray Bill is one of the coolest heroes, and he went through a lot, and they saved all of us repeatedly.
Yeah, it's definitely an unsung hero situation. He never quite gets the accolades that he has clearly earned.
Well, I don't think that Odin would have been able to defeat Surtur had Bil not commanded the battle and used Reed Richards and the Avengers to the effect that they did to destroy that the portal of their power in their realm.
Oh, for sure.
So Bil really saved the day as much as Odin.
Thanks, Bil.
So that's that.
Nice.
I still don't have any mail.
You don't?
No.
Again, do you want me to make some up?
Please.
I'm scared that if I just make something up on the fly, it will come out terribly wrong and I will say horrible things and people will realize that I'm a beast. So we'll just put that aside. And in the meantime, you can tell people how to find us and you.
Yeah, so for me, you can find me on Twitter at Swankmatron. You can find me on Patreon at Swankmatron and Instagram and wherever there is social media where the name Swankmatron is to be found, it's me. You can find my writings on StarWars.com and Big Shiny Robot, and you can find me on a Star Wars podcast called Full of Sith with Holly.
Yes, you poor man. You're stuck with me on multiple things. So we're at Full of Sith. I also host a podcast called Stuff You Missed in History Class, which you can find at missedinhistory.com. And you can find me on Twitter. It's at Surliest Girl.
And for those of you who want to find the show, you can contact us. Send us an email by going to fauthentichistory.com. That's Fauthentic with an X. And there's a contact form, and you can use that to email the both of us, and we'll get that, and we'll read your emails on the air. And I promise we do get email, so that we will read it if you send it. If you want to find us on Twitter, you can find us at Fauthentics, again with an X, and we're on Facebook at Fauthentic History. So we would also appreciate it if you left us a review anywhere you download this podcast, whether that's iTunes or Stitcher or whatever service you use to do that. That would help us greatly. And unless there's anything else, Holly.
Not this time. I'm saving it up.
You're saving it up?
Uh-huh.
One of these days, you're going to have something.
Yeah, it's going to be scary, too.
So until next time, this has been the saga of Surtur and Beta Ray Bill's origin.